Welcome again, my friends, to Unit 3 of your World History class. This is the Renaissance and the Reformation. At the end of this unit, you'll officially be halfway through this class, so you are rocking right through. But let's talk a little bit about what you're going to learn in this unit. So, the Renaissance, right? What is the Renaissance? In Unit 2, you looked at medieval times, you looked at especially what was happening in Europe during the medieval ages, also a little bit what was happening in China as well as the Islamic empires. But the Renaissance really focuses in Europe. Renaissance means rebirth. Okay, that is the meaning of the word. And so what this time period really is a rebirth of Europe in general. And specifically, kind of looking at religious aspects of it, right? So the Renaissance part of it very much looks at kind of scientific aspects, as well as it really tries to harken back to ancient European empires, especially Greece and Rome, looking at their ideologies, their culture, and gaining knowledge from those empires, as well as getting knowledge from other parts of the world that hadn't been in a dark ages. Okay, and based off the Renaissance, people start to think essentially a lot more. They start to question things. And one of the things that they question is the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has a complete hold over Europe at this time. If the Catholic Church says something is wrong, then it's wrong. If the Catholic Church says someone is guilty of whatever they say they're guilty of, then that person is guilty. The Catholic Church has a complete iron grip. But there are a lot of people, especially people like Martin Luther, who don't like this iron grip that the Catholic Church has. They believe that the Catholic Church has become corrupt and that they've corrupted this religion, essentially. So Martin Luther starts what is called the Reformation. And literally, what he does is he writes out what are called the 95 Theses. And essentially, what they are statements about what the Catholic Church is doing wrong in his eyes. Things like selling indulgences so that people can basically sin and then just pay the Catholic Church to get out of their sin. Things like selling, taking money to promote people to different positions in the church. All these types of things that don't really have anything to do with religion, they have to do with control. And what he does is he writes these down and he literally nails them to the door of his church. He is a Catholic priest and he writes these down, nails it to the door of his church, and then it's kind of spreads like wildfire. And people start turning their backs on the Catholic Church. And many of them become what we today call Protestant. So Catholic Church was pretty much the only Christian church for a very long time, but now we have a lot of different Christian churches because the Protestant Reformation, where people went away from the Catholic Church. And we also, during this time, start to see people really starting to kind of expand their influences. We have people like Henry VIII, who is actually one of the first European leaders to turn his entire country away from the Catholic Church. So, different mindsets, nobility kind of taking back control from the church, and then also inventions during this time period. The Renaissance and the Reformation lead to information and information that people want to put out in the world. So, one of the most famous and most important inventions of this time period is called the printing press. Now, we think it's easier today, right? If you have a printer, you can just print something out with ink and you can print literally whatever you want. But before this printing press was invented in the 1400s by a man named Gutenberg, you had to literally write every single thing out. So if I had an entire book, rather than that entire book, being able to be on my little Kindle right here, I would have to painstakingly write out that book in order to have a copy of it. But the printing press allows you to make copies of things much, much faster, which means that things like books or the 95 Theses are much more available and people can actually get their hands on them and read them. So these ideas start to spread. This is the time that really starts to pull, especially Europe, out of the medieval ages and into the modern age. It's kind of this transitional period between the medieval ages and what will become the modern age. Lots of really interesting people in this time period. People like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo or Donatello. Henry VIII might be a name that you knew. Lots of different people, very famous people during this time period as well. Now, as always, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. But have fun learning about the Renaissance and the Reformation, and let me know if you have questions. Thanks, friends.